Hello everyone, this is Gearbox Europlacer, an SMT assembly manufacturing in Kenya. So we are there trying to assemble one of our boards. So here the machine is trying to learn the different components, and you can see is able to learn the LEDs. So these are used for placing. We also did not have fiducial marks, so it was difficult for the machine to learn the layout of the board. So we were using the mounting holes rather to learn the orientation of the board, so that you can be able to see the tilt angle or how aligned the board is. Here you can be able to see it's learning the passive components. You'll be able to see also somewhere in the machine, so it's moving to different parts of the PCB to be able to learn their position, since we're able to correlate it from where we want the component to be placed and where it's actually placed. So the machine is continuously learning. You can see it had zoom in on the ESP module. The next process is applying the solder paste, so that the components can be able to, when they're heated, can be able to be attached on the PCB. Here is the engineer trying to add the components to the machine. So this is what we were using zone 2. So we have to add the rails to the machine so that it can be able to pick and place. So the machine picks the components from these rails. So the rails are, you'll be able to see later, they move forward, so that the machine can be able to continuously pick components from the reel and place it on the PCB. Currently the machine picks around 8 components at once, so it can be able to go faster. Since we had many LEDs, you'll be able to see that we were able to do it at 1 minute, which is quite fast compared to how I'd previously used hand assembly to pick and place the components. Here you can be able to see the matrix table. So we have the bigger components on the matrix table, and you can be able to see the PCB on the machine, and also the head where it picks and places. So we have most of our components are in zone 2. We have zone 1 to the left and zone 3 to the right. So here's the machine. We are trying to configure some of the parameters. We're trying to see if it will be able to detect the components from the reel. So you can see these are small passive components, probably a resistor, so that we are trying to check if it can be able to pick it and detect it correctly. So this is the second inspection point, where we inspect once the components have been placed. So there is an inspection point to be able to inspect all the different components. Here we have the oven, so we can look at the different temperatures. Our highest temperature is at 250 degrees Celsius. So we'll try and move the PCB from the assembly, from the pick and place machine to the oven, so that it can be able to heat up the solder paste to be able to join the components to the PCB. So the PCB is going to the oven. Once in the oven, we can be able to see its position, and we can be able to see the different zones in the oven, and we can be able to see the temperatures. So the final temperature is at 250 degrees Celsius. Then we have a cooling region. So the PCB is coming out from the cooling region. So we just cool down the PCB so that it can be able to be handheld. So this is the PCB moving. So we'll pick it, then go to the second inspection point where is here to inspect that all the components have been soldered correctly and all things are okay before we finally do the test. So this is a slow motion video of the recording of the how the pick and place works. So we have the head that is placing the components on the different parts, then it's disposing of the different nozzles at the different on the tool magazine. This is a demo for another development board. So we are trying to pick and place the components, and so we had 5 boards in production. So the first part was the first video, and these are the different components that the different boards that were being placed. So there is a little bin where some of the discarded parts are placed in there. So we'll just have to reuse the parts. So as you can see here, we have the 2 different boards, and you can see their different position. So this is just a test on how to simulate that the board is fully working. So we are just using Arduino before because it's easier to program. So we are just trying to light up the different LEDs along thicker rod to be able to see they actually work. This is the initial board without the SMD components, and this is the final board with the SMD components. So I would just like to give a thank you to the Gearbox Europlacer team, specifically Latif and Njunge, who is the engineers who have helped me during this process.